Hey guys, welcome back to the Schmoedown Respin, presented by CineTopical. I am Nate, here on the desk as always with my partner Strange Wing. On today's show, we'll be discussing Kaiser's recent comments that he made on Schmoedown Backstage in regards to his strategy for the 2020 season, the Inner Geekdom division, and Jeff Sneider's comments he made recently calling the division controversially weak. The upcoming match between Claudia Dolph and the Warfather, and this week's match featuring Robert the Spider Parker versus Andres Ace Cabrera. But before we get into that, a video was recently posted to the SEN channel highlighting some reactions to the much anticipated return of Dan Murrell to the league and the events leading up to that with team action, luckily enough to feature yours truly. Let's check out some of that video there. If you would like to see this video, you can check out the eye above my head or find the link in the description below of this video. But on to our first topic of the day. Strange Wing, what are your thoughts on Kaiser's strategy for the 2020 season?
Kaiser, he's going with if you're familiar with professional wrestling, the evolution approach. Keep people in your stable who's going to protect your championship. And I think it's pretty smart. You walked in with Smets as champion, and you heard about this kid Parker who may be a threat to the championship. What do? You do what you need to do. Draft him. In worst case scenario, he's going to knock people out and not win the championship. He's knocking people out. That means you get the points for winning and the points for knocking them out. So he may climb based on his, as he called it, his knockout artist.
What are their chances in non-Inner Geekdom matches?
It's been looking rough so far. So, I mean, he said he is worried about that IG championship, which either as a competitor, I'm either going to want to prove myself and be the first one to stand out in the dungeon, or I'm going to be like, he doesn't care about me, I don't care about him. So it could go either way. But I think when you're a player in the league, you want to prove yourself anyways. So I don't think anyone's going to play less because of Kaiser's strategy. Because if he had the singles championship, it would probably go the same way.
In regards to players maybe not wanting to play for Kaiser that aren't Inner Geekdom players because of his comments about that just being his strategy, he just wants to hang on to the Inner Geekdom belt. I still don't think that would hurt their performance, because in that case, you probably want to get traded.
Yeah.
And the best way to get traded is to be good, or at least to have other factions interested in you. So maybe he'll get lucky. Maybe this will push the non-Inner Geekdom players in the dungeon to play harder and thus end up making Kaiser look better in the same process. Recently on the Schmoedown's very own Videos Drew's Patriots reunion episode, Jeff Sneider made some controversial comments about the Inner Geekdom.
It's like the most ridiculous belt. It's like they know what movies to watch.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if there's 50 movies in it or 150 movies in it. You know exactly what movies you need to study. And that takes all like the surprise out of it. If I just gave you my favorite 100 movies, it'd be pretty easy to win a belt.
Yeah, well, that being said, though, like you've seen the Inner Geekdom stuff, though. You have to know like the
No, I
name.
haven't. I don't care. It's horrible.
Oh, well, I love
It's like the nerdiest.
style.
It's the nerdiest shit that the
It
Schmoedown
is.
has.
As a Jeff Sneider fan, not like being biased, I love it when he does that stuff. But as a non-fan, if I'm getting into the league and I like Video Drew and I like Jeff Sneider, so I'm watching this because I like these people and I see him bury it, I don't want to watch it.
Right.
Christian's probably not happy about this.
Sure.
I will say, as a journalist approach, I will say those Inner Geekdom matches, even though I may not care about those movies,
Right.
they're Tyson Holyfield, they're Rock versus Steve Austin,
Yeah.
they're clashes, you know, they're Balboa versus Creed. You get 5-star matches because they know these categories. They know the 100, 150 movies
Right.
so well.
Yeah.
So I think it benefits that to have one league where it can be a knockout classic every time, just about.
Honestly, I have the exact opposite opinion. I would argue the Inner Geekdom is the hardest division in this league. And it's because of the depth. Because there are less movies to pull from, the questions that you are getting about those movies are difficult. We'll talk about it later in this most recent match between Andres Cabrera and Robert Parker. Cabrera had Harry Potter as listed as one of his strengths. He spun Wizarding World on the wheel, and he was stumped by almost every single question that he got.
But his argument is you don't know what you're studying for. And based on that, you're never going to go in there 110% ready. Because he doesn't know 70s. 70s might be on the wheel that day. You don't know what you're studying for. You don't know the questions. When you go into IG, you have an idea of the questions. But it's kind of hard to say because I prefer singles and teams matches over intergeekdom matches because I like those movies less. But it's the same way with singles. We've seen categories that get chosen over and over and over again, and then new categories or categories people spin away from, like Kevin Smith movies. We saw that recently. Not a lot of people choose Kevin Smith movies, and because of that, there was softballs in the category.
Right.
That's just how the game works. But now we will be doing our predictions for next week's match.
That's right. So next week we have Claudia Doff versus Warfather. Little pretext to these characters. Claudia was initially drafted by the Dungeon. Kaiser had her. She was then traded to the Burning Droogs and then most recently traded to Corruption. So she's been traded 3 times, twice technically, I guess, without playing a single match. The Warfather is representing the Burning Droog, so technically they are former teammates. Warfather has played one Intergeekdom match before.
One Intergeekdom match, correct.
So he has, I mean, if you want to consider that experience on Claudia Doff, you can. But realistically, both of their first singles match coming up.
You know, I said it last time with the Ace and Parker match. I went with the experience over. So I'm going to go with Warfather to be safe. I'd rather be safe and then sorry, as the old expression goes. So Warfather's my pick to win.
I gotcha. I'm going to go the other way. I looked Claudia Doff up a little bit. She works in the movie industry. She's a writer and an actress. So she knows this industry. She knows kind of things she's headed for. Warfather, personally, I feel like when your character is that strong, sometimes it can get in the way. And I feel like that Warfather is a little more focused on being Warfather than he is necessarily competing in these matches. We saw him compete in the Intergeekdom. He did okay, but this is a singles match, so it is a broader spectrum of possible topics and things like that. We have no idea what he knows about movies outside of the Intergeekdom. We don't really know what either of them know about movies, period. Yeah. But I think she's going to be more level-headed. I think she has the experience in the industry. She's less focused on building this kind of grandiose character that Warfather is going to come out as.
Know right now.
That I know right now. But that's all I have to go off of, is what I know right now. So I'm taking in Claudia Doff for next week's match.
And this week's match.
This week's match, we had the debut of 2 rookies in the Intergeekdom division. We had Robert the Spider Parker versus Andres Ace Cabrera. In last week's Schmoedown Respin, you mentioned it earlier, we both gave Ace the nod in our predictions because of the experience.
And we both ate crow.
We both ate crow. You're correct. Robert Parker, I learned this after the match, actually TKO'd Kevin Smets in the fan leagues. So that just alone right there shows the depth of this guy's understanding of the Intergeekdom.
Speaking about fan leagues, if there's a teams league out there, the Respin's ready.
I'm down.
I don't know who to talk to about it, so
yeah,
let's make this public. Strange Wang and Nate, if they have belts, we're coming for the belts.
I mean, I can say it better myself, honestly. I'm ready to go if you are. Ace Cabrera, we mentioned, he has the experience. He's been around the schmoes for a minute now. He has an understanding of the game. He's seen matches. He's been there for them. In round 1, Ace has an okay round. He hits 7 out of 10. That's really not a terrible first round. Nothing to sneeze at. But Robert the Spider Parker hits that perfect round, and he goes ahead and hits his bonus question for the 11-7 lead going into round 2. He looks so calm, cool, and collected doing it. He doesn't look phased at all. He looks like he is out there to answer questions. I had to say, after round 1, Ace's confidence seemed a little shook. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, he said the lights got to him, and like the whole reason why we chose them and the win was because he's used to the lights. He said he was a little shook, the lights got to him, Parker got to him a little bit as well.
So on to round 2, Parker with the lead defers to Ace, gives him the first spin of the round. Ace hits Star Trek and immediately says nope and spins away from it. Strange Wang, what do you think about the choice to go to something else?
I think that was an idiotic thing to do. Because if he lands on an opponent's choice, what is he going to get?
Star Trek.
You got to have a poker face. As a manager, before the match, I would have told all my competitors, it doesn't matter what you spin on. I don't care what you land on.
Act like you might want it. Yeah.
Emotion. Zero emotion.
Yeah. So the respin itself wasn't what you were saying was a bonehead move. The immediately giving away, I do not want Star Trek.
You got to have a poker face in the league. I think we've seen that. We've seen it a billion times when people's done that exact same thing. Oh, no, I can't have this. Spin away. Opponent's choice. Oh, well, that's easy.
Yeah, for sure. On Ace's second spin, he ends up hitting the Wizarding World, which is what he wanted. He had Harry Potter listed as his strengths going into the match. He couldn't be more happy to hit this. It did not work out the way that he wanted it to. Parker ends up stealing 4 out of 5 questions. A challenge came in on the second question, so Cabrera checked a multiple choice. 2 of the options actually sounded extraordinarily similar to each other. Ace gives the wrong answer, but Mark Ellis has to second guess what he said because he's not sure which of the 2 questions he said. He gets it wrong. It goes to Parker. Parker gets the steal, but they challenge it because Mark borderline gave away the answer knowing that it had to be the one that sounded more like. The challenge is upheld. But since Ace technically missed the question already, the result is to just give Parker a separate question for a 1-point steal. They give it to him. He gets multiple choice. In my opinion, being a fan of Harry Potter, an absolute softball of a question for a steal, but he gets it nonetheless. Cabrera comes out of his round 2 with only 1 extra point and loses 4 points to the kid.
That's just how the game works, though. You don't know what question's going to be on the board. It was a smart challenge because he's coming in like a juggernaut. You got to cut the Russian at any time. You got to see blood. So trying to do that in his round, I think he had to challenge it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good challenge for sure. So on to Parker's round 2. He hits spinner's choice on the first spin and immediately spins to the Middle Earth. He easily nails his first 4 questions for 2 points apiece and gets the knockout. He has an absolutely perfect game in his Schmoedown debut. What are your thoughts on the Spider in his debut match?
I think it's good for him, He came in, he lived up to the hype. I think the suit and the character and the checking on the watch, I am not a fan of that. But as gameplay goes, you can't say anything about it. He had a perfect game.
Yeah.
He answered the other guys' questions, had a perfect game. It doesn't get much better than that. I will say, from the side of swag, though, I think when you saw at the round 1 how Ace was a little bit shook, because it felt that way on camera as well. That's your job to go in there and calm Ace down, tell him he's the best, get him ready for round 2, get him focused. So maybe that's something that Mr. Marshall needs to go into and have a better expertise in that area of calming his opponents down, getting them hyped up after each round.
Agreed.
Because maybe that would have made the difference.
I think, we saw it in the pregame little cutscene with Smets, Kaiser, and Parker. I think it's safe to say Parker definitely had the better manager in this match.
Oh, yeah.
For those, in terms of getting him ready, hyping him up, being there for him when he needed it. Obviously, when the match was going on, he didn't really need it, but I'm sure that having Kaiser and Smets on his side gave him an immense amount of confidence going into this match, especially knowing how good he has done in the fan leagues. In the postgame, Kaiser is critical of people dogging him for picking Parker so early in the draft. He was their first pick of the second round. He says the Dungeon will not lose an Inner Geekdom match this season. We talked about it earlier with his strategy for the entire season. Do you think that's a realistic possibility? I certainly do. I could easily see the Dungeon not losing a single Inner Geekdom match.
It comes down to that Stranger match, really. Because, as we talked about on the first episode of Schmoedown Respin, it seems like he's in his head a bit, and Smets may lose the title off of that. Smets told everyone, yeah, people's been in my head before. This is how it was done. So we don't know if Changer's going to incorporate those tactics into his strategy when playing Smets. So it's going to come down to mind games and whether Kaiser can get him straight for each round.
Kalinowski's still out there too. At some point in time, they'll probably end up facing him. Yeah.
Well, he has a number one. He's playing for the titles, the tag titles. So we don't know when that will be a game. We don't know when that will be played.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be his only match this season.
It could be, unfortunately, because of everything that's going on. In Ace's post-game interview, he was obviously completely overwhelmed by Parker when asked who he'd play again. His only response was anybody but Parker. So that just shows how dominating this kid can be in this league. So my question now, shifting to this, Smets, the current champion, obviously on the same team as Parker. They talked to Kaiser a little about it in the post-game interview, but how will that play out? There's blood between them in the fan leagues already. Will there end up being infighting between Smets and the Spider, or will we see more of what they have in the Finstock Exchange, where we know we have all the best players, we know we're going to be competing for each other for the belts? It's nothing but support and pushing the other player to get better. What do you think?
I think you got to do it like the Finstock Exchange because it's proven to work. Like, yeah, there's going to be egos, but it's not going to last.
Right.
And for that match, after that performance, like I said, I don't like the Energeek the movies personally, but as a fan of the Schmoedown, I'm ready to see that match. 5 rounds of that. Give me that any day of the week.
Yeah, agreed.
It's going to come down who's going to be the manager, though. For sure.
That's true.
Because Kaiser, he can't manage. We've seen that situation already. Kaiser is going to have to step back as manager. So it's going to be one-on-one. So I can't wait. Hopefully Parker knocks out 2 more people and gets his way to that title.
Yeah, I can't wait for that match either. It is inevitable, whether it's this season or next. Thank you guys so much for watching the Schmoedown Respin. Make sure you tune in next week to see and catch up on all the latest Schmoedown news in the league. As always, like, share, and subscribe.